Live streaming is on.
Live streaming is on.
Live streaming is on. There we go, everybody. Live streaming is on. So here we are on Propagate's YouTube channel for another round of Gardener's Question Time with myself, Abby Morden, and Jenny, who hasn't said anything yet.
I'm waiting.
Just trying to get the lighting right. Well, we've got I think we just sort of we'll just sit here and talk about gardening until the link to the waiting room is in the description of this video. Oh, it's Amy. We're doing the live YouTube Gardener's Question Time broadcast. Shopping. That's my shopping.
How have you been finding this year in terms of weather and climate and stuff?
Oh my goodness, excessively warm at the moment. Which, as a sun worshipper, I'm absolutely delighted about. I absolutely love the sunshine and being in the sunshine and working in the sunshine. But we are on an off-grid water source here, so we rely entirely on rainfall and the pond, which is just behind me, filling up, and then we kind of pull the water out of the pond with a pump and water the polytunnel and the gardens like that. So that's been challenging, watching the pond getting dry and thinking, are we going to run out?
Yeah. So it's got quite a lot lower, has it? The pond?
It has got quite low. It's thankfully a bit of rain tops it right back up again, and it makes you feel a bit more confident. But then, there's no rain forecast for the next week and a half. So watering takes such a long time. Such a long time.
That's like I guess when it gets to that stage, you have to prioritize water for yourselves over the plants. That's when it gets.
Oh no, our own water supply is a mains connection. So, but we have to go and fetch it in a water butt from the tap outside the house. But that's okay. So we just sort of take the big water barrel over in a wheelbarrow. But that's not close enough to the polytunnel and the garden in order to kind of use that for that. So we use the pond and the river for watering. But you've still got to prioritise a bit what you're watering and when you're watering it. It's quite important to water at the right time of day.
Water saving becomes more and more important. That's a cool stone. At the moment, like I still feel a bit complacent about water, but compared to somewhere like Australia, they've had to think for a long time about really water saving gardening. So how to garden with hardly any water and be really conscious of it.
Unmute myself. So that year that I spent out in Portugal was quite revealing for how to grow foods with less water, and I got kind of very used to sort of food production in the Algarve where it hardly ever rains, and food production up in the mountains where essentially it's kind of summer almost all year round, especially with kind of decreasing precipitation due to climate change, meaning that the aquifers that are meant to fill up over the winter were not doing so. So water conservation was kind of absolutely vital. But it's a different kind of gardening and it's a different kind of growing. So, oh, look, we have a guest.
To be honest.
Hey, we've got Shuna joining us. Hello, Shuna. Shuna, can we hear you? Do you want to start saying hello?
Yeah. Hi, Abby. Yeah, it's a bit of a day, but I can hear you. Hi, Abby. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Very good, and our garden's looking great.
Yeah, can't quite hear you very well.
Okay, our garden's looking great.
Brilliant, brilliant. Glad to hear it. Lots of things growing well for you. Are you coping with the lack of rainfall?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're watering it every day, and then we've had a few days of rain, which has really helped it. So yeah, we're very proud of what we've done.
Excellent. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you got a specific question for us?
Oh yeah, I was just out getting some spring onions, and my spring onions are very short underneath the ground. So I'm wondering, like, how to help my spring onions be longer and when to harvest them.
So you cut out a wee bit there, but you said when to harvest spring onions. Is that?
And how to make, because they're very short. I just got some from the garden and they're very short.
Very short. Okay. Okay. Well, the first thing that comes into my head when I think of spring onions is how great they are for a cut and come again vegetable. So actually, you don't need to pull them right out of the ground. You can cut them at ground level, and they will just grow back.
Yeah.
Is that what you did, or did you pull them out?
No, I pulled them out. Yeah, I forgot about that. Cut and come again. But they're really, really short. Under the ground, they're very short.
Yeah, well, most of the growth will be above the ground. So are you asking how to get longer spring onions? How to get bigger and better ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they're related to obviously leeks and garlic and the rest of the allium family. I've never tried earthing spring onions up, but I wonder if that's a thing that you can do. Is sort of just to earth them up slightly so they've got a bit more soil around the bottom half of the stem. And that could help them to kind of, blanch up a little bit. But you wouldn't normally find they had much going on below the surface. Most of the growth is really kind of in the stem above. So the kind of thing to do there is to, wait until they're big enough. Lots of water, actually. That's what they do. Yeah, quite a lot of water. So it sort of helps them to more water they've got. They're quite a juicy plant. Think about it. They have quite a lot of moisture inside them, so they need water in order to kind of really pick up and shoot up.
Hi, Tuna. If I could just add a wee thing in there as well. We've got as you're watering. As you're watering, you could also pop something in the water to give them a boost. So, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus are like the key ones for plants, the nutrients for plants, and nitrogen will help the leafy growth, and then phosphorus will help that rooty growth underneath. So I've been making one with banana peels. So you just put banana peels in water and leave them for a couple of weeks, and then that gives you a lot of potassium and phosphorus that you can add in. So it might give them a wee boost.
Very good.
I would agree with that. I think feeding any plants at the moment at this time of year is a really good idea. So I do a weekly feed for all my vegetables. We're on a Monday is feeding day, generally speaking. Apart from the tomatoes, they're getting 2 feeds a week at the moment. But yeah, anything that can kind of help its kind of green leafy growth, or as Jenny said, it's rooty growth is kind of what you're looking for spring onions particularly. You don't want to give them too much in the way of potassium because they'll start trying to flower. You might end up with flowering spring onions a little bit early. Although you can eat the flowers as well, and that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Has that been helpful, Gina?
Yes, it has. Yeah, I'll listen back again because I'm a bit distracted by kids in the background. So I will listen back again. But yes, that was really useful. Answered my question and some.
Yeah. So water and feeding is kind of what we're saying. Yeah. Don't underestimate how much water they need, and get them fed a bit. Are you feeding your plants at the moment? Are you giving them an extra feed?
No, guilty. I'm not feeding them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, give them a wee feed and see how they get on.
Okay. Thanks very much.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Judith.
Question. Bye. Okay. Sophie's saying we don't have any other guests at the moment. But we could talk a bit more about. If you would like to join us, folks, if you want to join us, we're on YouTube. We are live broadcasting to the nation, and we have put the link for joining the waiting room where Sophie, one of our co-propagators, is holding fort. So she will meet you in the waiting room. And give you a quick chit chat on how the whole setup works, and then she'll give you the link that takes you to this room, from where you will be your face on YouTube. So Jenny, what else are you up to in the garden? What's going on in Jenny's garden at the moment? Eating things. Which is always nice. So we've had a few lovely radishes come up, and the boys absolutely love them. Well, Theo does. And strawberry, 1 or 2 strawberries, lots of wild strawberries, some lettuce, peas. They've been it's good that the advice is you should harvest the peas regularly, because they do, they get munched as soon as they grow, but that should encourage them to grow more peas. So we want more peas, but I don't think they're going to reach the actual podding stage. I think they're just going to get munched as by humans or by mice? No, by my children, which is great, because they won't eat vegetables in the kitchen that I've cooked, but they will eat them off the plant. Brilliant. But yeah, we've been eating all the greens. It's been great. We had a frittata last night, just packed full of spring onions and chards, and I'm watching my courgettes getting a little bit bigger. It's kind of I've got my first courgette's probably about that big at the moment. I keep very tempted to just pick it off and eat it, but I haven't yet. Okay, we've got a question from a YouTube watcher. And the question is, the water at the G3 Growers Garden has almost run dry. So G3 Garden is the back garden in Anderston. It's a really lovely space. If you live in the kind of central or west area of the city, the Anderston, York Hill kind of bit, it's worth going along, getting involved, having a look. It's a really nice space that's in behind a whole bunch of tenements. However, it is sadly not on a mains water connection, so they're completely dependent on rainwater harvesting. And as we've been discussing, we're a bit low on rainwater at this time of the year. Seem to be a lot of grey clouds over there, but none of them seem to be dropping any rain on us.
I think you need to get those barrels filled one way or another from a long hose pipe from some friendly neighbour's back sort of bath or outdoor tap. I know that in the past, and this is a bit out there as an idea, but I have managed to get the fire brigade to fill up water tanks in the past. But obviously that's quite dependent on them not being busy putting out fires. So getting those tanks filled out with water, because everything's going to start getting really stressed if it doesn't get fed and it doesn't get watered. And if you don't water things and they get stressed, then they start running to seed. It's not just a matter of them slowing down. They'll actually start bolting because they'll try and reproduce, which is what plants are always just trying to do, to reproduce. The other half of that question was feeding. What does Abby use for feeding? I mostly use a comfrey feed. So I've got a few big stands of comfrey in this area, and so I make a comfrey feed. It's one of my favourite things to make. I quite like the smell.
Really?
It's horrible. Yeah. It makes me. It's a wholesome smell. It's also a disgusting smell. To make a comfrey liquid feed, you have a bucket. I haven't got a bucket handy, so I can't show you, but the sort of average size. Let's say, I don't know, 3 kilo buckets that you get honey or tahini in from Green City, that kind of size thing. So you can make a liquid feed and something quite small. Anyway, cut as much comfrey as you can, and then you mush it up, like make it kind of get all the sort of juices kind of oozing out of it. Rip it into pieces and shove it in a bucket, and then pour water onto that, so it's totally covered up. So the water level should be just above the level of the comfrey leaf, and then put a lid on it, ideally, and leave it for a couple of weeks. But even after the first week, it should start smelling. And I have been throwing some banana skins in there as well, actually, lately. That's on Jenny's advice. so it's comfrey and banana skin tea. Chucking a bit of that in.
I just love the idea of using up things that are going to get thrown away anyway. You can put them in the compost as well. But if you can give your plants a wee boost now, as well as waiting for the compost to be ready, then why not? And it's like being quite interested to learn about all the nutrients that are in the different foods that we eat, and the banana peels, things that we throw away, and Epsom salts giving the plants magnesium. It's like the things that are good for us are good for the plants, and vice versa. Do you know?
Sounds tasty. Anyway, you should just finish that spiel about the comfrey. You should, I dilute my comfrey tea to 1 part comfrey and 10 parts water. And that seems to work for me. And like I said, I feed everything. Everything's getting a feed every Monday at the moment, with the tomatoes getting a bit extra on a Thursday. So, yeah.
And do you know what comfrey, what nutrients that adds, or is it a bit of everything? Or
comfrey's amazing, actually. It's a bit of everything. It's mostly nitrogen, but it's also quite a bit of potassium and a little bit of phosphorus. So it's good for all three macronutrients. But the other thing about comfrey is because it's got this really long taproot, so it draws lots of nutrients up from deep into the ground and puts that out into its foliage. So it's not just full of 3 macronutrients, it's full of lots and lots of micronutrients that are found quite deep in the soil structure as well. That's
trace elements.
it's one of my favourites. It's kind of a bit of a catch-all.
Copper, magnesium, and
what was that?
all things like copper and magnesium and all the trace elements that you get.
Yeah, yeah. So it's got a lot of that in it as well, just because it's pulling them up and storing it in its foliage. Yeah, I was just saying to Sophie earlier, we're having a bit of a chat because and showing each other our backdrops or the view out of the door or the window. This is the view from my front door when I get up in the morning. But Sophie's got the sea outside her window because she's been locked down on Iona, and despite being only 20 miles from the coast, I've been living in Galloway for just over 2 months now. And despite being only 20 miles from the coast, I've only been there once and totally forgot to get any seaweed. And seaweed is an absolute beast of a fertiliser for feeding your plants at this time of year. It gives them exactly the boost that they need. It's brilliant stuff. And I could have taken a ton sack down and filled it up with seaweed and just totally forgot. So.
Well, it's very traditional in the crofting areas, isn't it? To use on the islands, they use the seaweed on the land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can just use it as a.
Oh yeah, we've got the questions here, which are follow-up questions, and they are about using chicken poo and using seaweed. How would you use them? How would you prepare them?
Yeah, so with chicken manure, it's most commonly kind of accessed as a pellet kind of form anyway. So you can buy like a massive big bucket of chicken, like dehydrated chicken poo pellets that you mix into water, or that you can just spread directly onto the soil, and as you water it, it kind of dissolves the pellets as it goes along. But if you actually had chickens, then you could just put scoops of chicken manure. You can do the same with horse manure as well. If you've got some fairly well rotted horse manure, then you can just put that in a big bucket and make that into a tea in much the same kind of way as you would with the comfrey or the banana skins or anything else. There's an additional question here in the chat about using seaweed. How would you use seaweed to fertilise? Well, I know how I do mine. How do you do yours, Jenny?
Not done seaweed.
Oh, well, you can use it as a top mulch.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can use it as top dressing, so you can just sort of lay it on the soil around the plants, and you haven't got to do anything else to it really.
I like that. I like stuff you can just lay on the top and then let all the worms and the creatures break it all down, and it's very kind of lazy.
Lazy, but also vital, because especially in this sun. So this is another trick that I learned out in Portugal. Was covering the ground up to stop the soil from drying out, to save water. So mulching, absolutely vital, and mulching with something really good like comfrey or seaweed, or fresh grass cuttings. Another good one. Not grass cuttings with seeds in them, because then the seeds will go into the soil and you'll get loads of grass growing everywhere. But if you're a regular lawn mower, then getting the fresh grass cuttings and using that as a top dressing, as a top mulch, and the worms will do the job of pulling all that organic matter into the soil. So you're feeding and enriching the soil and creating better soil structure at the same time. But also you're kind of preventing the soil from drying out. And which is kind of what we need at the moment with this hot sun. I'm just going to check after this. I'm going to check my garden after this and make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, things like some things that would even burn or be too rich if you dug them into the soil. If you put them on top of the soil, they can be broken down by the elements and over time and incorporated more gradually, which means they're not going to burn the little plants as well.
Yeah, that's
like, coffee grounds, because in the city it is a bit different in that you haven't got sort of bulk raw materials of greenery all the time, but you do have a lot of you've got kitchen scraps, you've got cafes that have used coffee grounds that you can access. Like, they're often happy to give you bags of used coffee grounds, and all that sort of thing can be used to build up the soil and boost your compost heap as well. So we've got another comment just adding about the seaweed, really good for keeping the slugs away, because the slugs don't like the seaweed, I guess because it's really salty. Have you found that as well, Abby?
I've never experienced that exactly, but Sophie's commented on that. She's chatting away to us in the chats, and yeah, I mean, she's an owner, and she's using seaweed as a top dressing mulch, so she should know. It's keeping the slugs away. I haven't actually experienced many slug issues this year. I don't know what your slugs have been like. It's been quite dry, a bit too dry for too many slugs.
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing them and seeing slugs and snails, but they haven't seemed to cause me that many problems.
That's exactly what you want. Slugs not causing problems. So come on, folks, we're only on here for another half hour. Jenny and I, I'm sure, could talk happily about gardening until the cows come home, but we'd rather have your questions. So you can post your question, you can join us. Join us, and the link, if you're watching on YouTube, then there should be a link somewhere. I'm not sure where. I'm just gonna make sure there is a link. I'm very sorry here for another half hour. That's me talking to myself. Yeah, the link is there. I'm just checking. So yeah, that's meet.jit.si/gardeners QC waiting. Come in with your questions. Okay, we've got a watering question coming in. You can also comment. So you can comment on the live stream and send us your questions that way. What else can you do? You can. Is anyone watching the Facebook? Maybe we're not watching the Facebook. maybe if one of us can keep an eye on the Facebook event, and you can post your questions there as well. And between me and Jenny and Sophie, we will attempt to answer them. Sophie says she's keeping on Facebook. Thank you, Sophie.
Here's a question from Sophie. How long and how often do I need to water beans? Do they have deep roots?
Yep. Do you want to go for that one, Jenny?
Well, probably daily. I would say if there's no rain, and I wouldn't say they've got particularly deep roots compared to some things. They're pretty tall, aren't they? I mean, there's lots of different types of beans. French beans. Yeah, so they'll be pretty tall, lots of leafy growth, climbing up everything. So yeah, I would say they need lots of water. And I wonder why are you asking about this, the depth of the roots?
I guess you don't want to have root rot, do you? That's something you definitely want to avoid.
Oh, it's in top. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want things becoming too waterlogged. So if it depends on how free draining your soil is. If you've got quite a clayey soil, then that's much better for water retention, as much as it is for nutrient retention. So clayey soil will hold the water much better, but then you've got to be quite careful with with kind of root rot if you start over watering. If you've got a sandy soil, it's quite free draining. We've got a sandy soil here in Galloway, well, this part of Galway we have anyway. So yeah, I'm out every day, watering, and I don't know, how do I do it? I count seconds. That's what I do. So I've got I'm out with the water with the hose or the watering can. But if I'm using a watering can, I don't tend to have the rose on it. It's just like an open. And if I'm using the hose, it's very directed. So I'm pouring the water directly onto the soil around the plants and not spraying the plants and not getting too much water on the actual leaves themselves. And I kind of count 1, 2, 3 for each plant.
Okay.
That's my strategy. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So it should make a little pool, and then it should just disappear. The other thing, the important point with that though is to make sure that you are watering like not in the heat of the day. So absolutely under no circumstances would you go outside in this kind of weather and then start watering. So we were watering in the polytunnel at like 9 o'clock last night. Seemingly the best time to do it is at like 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun comes up. But I'm not going to do that. So it's 9 o'clock at night for me. It's just much
It's a nice evening job, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely evening job to do. And you can treat yourself some dinner at the same time.
So I think she's wondering about about the deep roots. I guess if the plant has deeper roots, it can suck up water that's being stored in the lower levels of the soil. So it will dry out less. That's the good thing about comfrey is it has a really deep root and it can suck up all those nutrients from down below and make them available to other plants.
That's exactly it. We have another question from Karen Mackenzie, who has presumably been listening in via the YouTube channel. Can I check how to change the soil for my blueberry bushes? It's sitting at pH 7 at the moment. No, blueberries don't like a terribly neutral soil. They like it to be a bit more on the acidic side. You've already got an answer, Karen, from Annie from the G3 growers. Sulfur chips, that would be quite a good one. You can of course buy ericaceous compost if you wanted to kind of buy in a sack of compost and use that again as a top dressing around your blueberry bushes. Although the best time of year to do that is kind of really in the autumn or in the very early spring. This idea that just popped into my head would be to use citrus. Does anyone know if that's a thing? I've never tried it before. Could you make a sort of citrus diluted tea to water your fruit bushes with, and therefore get a sort of bit more acidity into the soil around the plants? I actually don't know. I think that's maybe one to look up.
Vinegar might, diluted vinegar. And I'm also thinking, because forest soils are pretty acidic, and so leaves, pine needles, things like that would alter it over time, but that would take a longer time to sort of incorporate into the soil. But yeah, be interesting to see what other people have tried as well.
Yeah. So sulfur chips, I've not heard of using that before, but it doesn't mean it's presumably it's worked for Annie and the G3 crew. But yeah, I think if I was going to start using citrus and vinegar, I would do it very sparingly, super sparingly. Maybe as a bit of an experiment, and definitely do a bit of research on that first. but yeah, those are the kind of things that I can think of that would be good for altering the pH. And obviously blueberries do prefer a bit more of a kind of acidicness to their soil. Don't be shy, folks. We're only on till 3:30. We'd love to have you joining us in the room here. So you can either post your questions in the conversation on Gardeners Question Time #2, or you can click the link and Sophie will entertain you in the waiting room until you're ready to join us live broadcasting on YouTube. So yeah. What else are you up to in the garden at the moment, Jenny? So you did a recent what to do in June video, didn't you?
Yeah,
what was featured
the fast cropping things that you can harvest in sort of under 2 months. You can, so like lettuce and radish and chard and beetroot, you can keep sowing those every 2 to 3 weeks. So I've just been sowing more seeds, weeding, keeping things weeded, watering, all those things. Yeah,
I've been thinking about sowing some Mizuna, and some of the kind of the salad leaves that are a bit more resilient to colder temperatures that you're meant to sow towards the end of June. So I've been preparing some bed space for those. Interestingly, it's useful to know that those are all members of the brassica family. So although we eat them as if they are salad leaves, they're actually related to things like cabbages.
Yeah, and turnip, they're brassicas, aren't they?
Radishes and turnips.
So if you plant rocket later in the summer, then it's less likely to bolt. It's likely to grow better because it's not in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, that's it. We've had loads of endless radishes coming out of the garden, which is pretty good. I've just been sowing radishes every 2 weeks, and they've been pretty popular on the hidden veg box. So just for people that don't know, I'm kind of living in Galloway, and we've set up a small market garden so that we're selling produce to local people. My partner Bruce is out every Friday on the electric bike delivering a wee box of veg to the local villagers here. So we're doing salads and kale and chard and radishes and baby turnips, and hopefully this week courgettes. It looks like they're very nearly ready. But yeah, it's so keeping the radishes going have been surprisingly popular. I didn't think they would be as popular as they actually have been. But getting about 50 radishes sown each week on a quick rotation, quick succession, because you can squeeze them into any small gap anywhere. You know, you can kind of get a load of sort of radishes into quite small spaces, and they'll mature really fast. That's the great thing about radishes, and they're really good as what we call a catch crop, for kind of fit for putting in between slower growing things, so they kind of grow really fast in between things like broccoli and cauliflowers, part of the brassica rotation.
A couple more questions here. So it's about growing in containers. I know that carrots need a sandy soil. My raised beds are full of other veg just now. This is from Shuna. Is it possible to grow carrots in a container? It's good to grow in a container. Means you can actually control what the soil is like even more, so you can make sure it's pretty. It's got to have good drainage and be quite small particles, because if carrots hit any stones, they're going to split. So that's why they like a really fine sandy soil. So I've mixed in some coconut fibre, coir, in with compost and put it in pots, and sown some carrot seeds in there. So I'm hoping it'll produce a good crop.
Have you watched some videos on how to get sort of mega carrots, like the sort of show carrots that folks do?
No.
They do them in big long tubes like this, and they put like a big sort of wadge of manure at the bottom of the tube, and the rest is just basically sand. Right, so the carrot sunk at the top of the tube kind of goes down to try and find the manure at the bottom, because it is just sand. You can just they do grow really well in a sort of sandy bucket. So the answer to your question, Shuna, is essentially yes, it's totally possible to grow them in a container, but it kind of links to we've got a question in from Nick Powell as well, and he's also asking about growing in containers. And just, I know you haven't specifically asked this, Nick, but just as a word of advice, growing in containers will obviously dry out much faster than the soil levels will, and you really see that if you've got some seeds in trays. Anything in a pot is going to grow out, going to dry out a lot faster than anything in the soil, because the soil's much better at retaining moisture. So don't forget to extra water for all those juicy vegetables. But Nick's question is that he is mostly growing in containers, and he's wondering what is the minimum space of veg like potatoes, dwarf beans, peas, broccoli and cabbage. More than you think, Nick. That's the answer to that question. It's often much more than space taken up for all those things than you would expect. So let's start with potatoes.
Can we talk about a bucket, like a 10-litre bucket or something, as a guide? Yeah. Let's imagine we've got a 10-litre bucket. Yes. Yeah. So potatoes, Jenny. What would you say minimum space of potatoes? Well, 3 to 4. I would say 3 seed potatoes in there. Yeah, I would agree. 3 seed potatoes, and you shouldn't grow anything else in there with them, because you're going to have to continuously earth those potatoes up as they get. Obviously the stems grow longer and longer, and you earth them up, and that helps to get more potatoes going on underneath. So you wouldn't want to get any more than 3 into let's say a 10-litre bucket. Dwarf beans, on the other hand, well, I kind of think of dwarf beans and any kind of the bean family as using a hand spacing. So you just kind of have one plant here and one plant there, and I kind of tend to use my hand as an average guide for beans, which is probably roughly, I haven't got particularly big hands. How big are my hands? About 15 centimetres long, probably. I think that sounds about right to me. Yes. And peas, roughly the same. They're going to do quite a lot more branching out. So you could do a sort of hand's length circle of peas all the way around the outside of your 10-litre container, and then make a sort of string trellis for those to climb up. So then we've got the broccoli and the cabbage, more the brassica family. Jenny, what would you say for those? 1. Yeah. They're small buckets. Yeah. Those are things that take up a lot more space than you would possibly think. So if you got depending on what kind of broccoli we're talking about, if it's Calabrese, you might be able to get away with 2. That's the headed broccoli. If it's purple sprouting, then also obviously remember with purple sprouting, if you've sown it in February or March, it's not going to produce purple sprouting until next February or March, and the plant itself will get really big. Whereas 1 head of cabbage, you're not going to get much more than that in one bucket.
So I would tend to think of that. If the beans are a hand spacing, then I would think of the spacing between brassicas ought to be the length of a trowel. Tends to be the guides that I use. So I'll sort of lay the trowel on the ground and put, one there, sort of thing. And that's probably almost not quite twice my hand, but it's getting up for it.
Yeah. So we've got another question. I will need to thin my broccoli plants, but don't have enough space to replant them. I don't want to throw them away. What should I do? Yeah.
Give them away.
Put them on and throw them on in little pots and give them away. We've started having a little plant stall out in our pavement in front of our house, because you always end up with a few extra, and things that have been seeding themselves in the garden, like mint and fennel. They've been going a bit rampant, and wild strawberries. So we've been digging them up, and my son has been managing the stall, and he has actually been asking for donations. So he got enough money to get himself a penknife. So that was quite cool, showing him like enterprise, motivate him even more to get into gardening.
Is it going well? Have you had many takers?
Yeah, very popular. People were after the tomatoes in particular.
Yeah, we have a stall here called the Abundant Stall that's on the lane, and it's any surplus plants, any surplus foods. It's going on the Abundant Stall. We've got a pay as you feel honesty box. So there's no human kind of managing the stall on a daily basis. But we have a quick check-in. There's also, I don't know if it's active at the moment, I imagine it probably is, but there's a Facebook group called Glasgow Plant Swap that I've noticed. I haven't looked at it, and I have nothing to do with it, so a bit of a disclaimer, but I would imagine that'd be the sort of place that you can kind of go, here, I've got excess broccoli.
It's a cool idea. But it also involves traveling distances, and with this lockdown, all these people have been spending more time in their gardens. My next door neighbour's gone gardening mad. She's got pots everywhere. Everyone's getting really into gardening, so it's good to sort of encourage it just on your street and have a swap. Yeah, I thought the next thing we could do is turn that wee stall into a swap table. And just anyone with seeds or plants can sort of swap it for things they want. Oh, the questions are piling in now. So, yeah, thinning the broccoli plants, or just eat them. If they're like mini broccolis, that's microgreens basically. So that's something I want to experiment with next, is like growing microgreens and trying all the different varieties of microgreens. They're very nutritious. So yeah, I would just eat them.
And you can pretty much grow anything as a microgreen as well, and it's dead easy. But the brassica family, that's anything from radishes to cabbages, and turnips and pak choi and all that kind of thing. I think they're particularly good as microgreens because they're quite fast to germinate. Their first leaves, those kind of heart-shaped leaves, and then they put their proper leaves after that, and it's at that point you can cut them and they will grow back. And I know that you can cut them and they'll grow back even when they're really small, because when I first sowed a load of brassicas here in Galloway, when I got here, almost the entire tray got nibbled by mice, and I was just like, oh my god, I've lost my brassicas, they have all died because they have been eaten by mice, and then they grew back. And I was like, oh my god, it's brilliant. So I'm very happy. And now they're very well established plants, and I'm already harvesting leaves off the kale. But I have kept some in smaller pots just because I've run out of space to plant them out, and I haven't managed to make enough bed space yet. and I'm just picking the leaves off my Cabal Nero, which is a posh kind of kale, and just eating that as baby kale, which is really nice.
Yum.
Tasty.
And I like to supplement with foraged stuff. So like go out and food for free is good as well. Just find the things in your hedgerow to just add to your salads, and even adding the edible flowers and things. So Nick was saying 1 cabbage per bucket. Should have bought more buckets. Very useful, thanks. Shuna says, I've promised some of my neighbours some plants. Good idea to put out a wee stall. Okay.
You know, the thing about a stall as well, is like you're saying, Jenny, it kind of builds that kind of community cohesion.
Yeah.
a bit more kind of getting to know your neighbours, which I think is something that a lot of people can identify with at the moment, because they haven't been able to leave the small confines of our own neighbourhoods. So you kind of have to force into getting to know your neighbours a bit better. Although I happen to know that Nick lives about 10 miles away from me. But also more intentional community.
When you're in a residential area, you do feel a lot safer when you know your neighbours. It just feels a lot nicer for people, and then you're looking out for the more vulnerable people as well. Yeah,
and you may be more likely to then potentially start a community garden. So, which of course is propagates kind of one of our main areas of work, is helping new groups set up new growing spaces and new community gardens. So quite often communities and groups will come to us and say, look, we've identified a bit of a gap site in our local area, and we'd love to turn it into a productive space, and how do we go about doing that? And something that we can help with as an organisation is kind of connecting people with the right folk in the council to get permission to use and leases sorted out, with designing and planning the space and helping to kind of build it and that kind of thing. And a garden, a really good example of a very successful kind of entirely voluntary community member led, is the Battlefield Community Garden, which is where I've just moved from. And this year they've got loads of salads. I mean, there's just salads pouring out of the raised beds, and kale and chard in every direction. And they're doing a kind of just pick as you feel kind of idea. So you can just pick some leaves, take a wee bag down, pick some leaves, help yourself, and all the different vegetables that are in there are all cut and come again varieties. So lots of green leafy stuff that you cut the leaves and they grow back. And really, that's the most efficient for a small space and for a lot of people. If you haven't got a lot of room and you've got a lot of folk to feed, then using cut and come again varieties of vegetables is probably the most sensible thing to do. Just thinking back to Nick's buckets there. And if it was me, then I probably wouldn't be growing cabbages and broccoli in buckets. I'd be growing salad and chard in buckets, because then you know that you're going to get like multiple crops and for quite a long period of time.
You harvest the cabbage. You harvest it once, and that's it, isn't it? So like, if you've got lots of people in a community garden, they were like fighting over the one cabbage or something. But I also want to put a shout out to apple trees, because even quite a small garden, you can get sort of smaller rootstocks that grow to about 3 meters. So you can actually fit it in. And then you can grow stuff underneath the apple tree. So you're using the space underneath. You grow like ground cover, strawberries or some mint or something that grows really well. So apples. I'm very excited about my apple tree and watching the little fruits growing bigger and trying to chase away the pigeons. which keep coming and sit. Massive pigeon comes and sits in the branch and just looking at them, waiting.
We had a very unfortunate, windy, super windy weekend, just when all the apple blossom was kind of at its most blossomy. And then we had this kind of 2 days, 48 hours of extreme wind of like up to 48 miles per hour, and it blew all the blossom off the trees and obviously kept the pollinators stuck indoors. And I've been going around looking at the fruit trees around here, and I'm sad to say we haven't got an awful lot. The harvest this year is going to be pretty low for apples and pears, which is a bit sad because I also love my apples. And yeah, we've got pigs here as well, and I hear you're not meant to. Huh?
You got pigs?
We've got pigs, yes. And I hear you're not meant to eat the pigs until you've fed them the leftover apples. And I'm thinking there's not going to be any leftover apples.
No, but that's the thing about permanent, like, apple trees are going to be there next year. So you've always got next year. You don't have to plant it all over again. That's why.
There's always next year. And like you're saying, Jenny, with you can kind of create layers in a garden. So your apples and your pears are on your kind of upper story, and then you can have your ground cover of strawberries or wild garlic or spring onions, that kind of thing.
Lemon balm.
But you can also, you've got your mid layer of gooseberries and red currants and black currants, and they grow pretty well under fruit bushes as well. And a good example of that, if you're in the Glasgow area, is the Gorbals Rose Garden, where there's about, 15 really quite mature now fruit trees, and around them loads of raspberries, loads of white currants, loads of black currants, and loads of red currants, which must be ready now. People should go and pick them.
Yeah.
Make jam.
You've inspired me, actually. Like, sneak down there. Have a look. Tina is asking, is there an apple tree that you can train to grow flat against a wall? Yeah, any apple tree you can train. It's called espalier. So you just get a pruning book. There's cordons which are like on the diagonal, which I think are usually easier to do. Although I haven't had a lot of practice. But yeah, espalier, you basically train them, and then you're trying to get all the right branches to produce as many apples as you can.
I think that's the great thing about fruit trees, is that they can be, because they're bred essentially to be productive, is they can be really quite easily manipulated into sort of growing into the shape that you want them to be. So I remember being at an allotment site, I think it was Home Lee Gardens in the south side, and somebody had made like a low hedge entirely out of apple trees, and they were really quite mature apple trees, but they've been pruned almost bonsai style. So the apple trees themselves weren't any higher than my knees, and I'm very tall, but they were still producing fruits every year, and that's kind of, because they've been bred specifically to be productive. You can kind of manipulate them, like I say, into kind of growing into the sort of shape and the formation, and it's just about pruning them, really. So yeah, as Jenny says, there is no specific apple variety, although our apple expert friends might disagree with that. So people like Andrew Lear, who runs an apple tree nursery in Perthshire, called Plants and Apples, I think is their website. He's called Apple Tree Man, and his wife Margaret runs a plant nursery. And also John Hancock, who's Glasgow based, and he runs the Scottish Orchards enterprise. And they might be able to advise on varieties that would do better as espaliers and cordons. But my understanding is that essentially any tree can be trained if you just know if you have a good book and you can read up on what you're doing.
Yeah, and even growing a normal apple tree, you will still need to know a bit about pruning, when to prune it and how, just to make sure that the branches don't break and it gets diseased. And
it is the wrong time of year just now to be talking about pruning, but it's good. It'd be good to keep an eye on the events and workshops that will be coming up, because I'm sure it'll be safe enough to have physically distanced workshops in October. And the Orchard projects are really good at organising community pruning days. So they've been doing a few in the Rose Garden I mentioned, in the Gorbals. They've done some there. There's a community orchard in Rockhill in North Glasgow, at the Roots of Rockhill community allotment site, and there was a pruning workshop there over the winter as well. So look out for those, because the opportunities do exist, and we'll post them and share them through our Propagate page, and I'm sure they can be posted and shared through the Glasgow Local Food Network and the Galloway, Dumfries and Galloway Local Food Network group as well. Wherever we pick up on, we will share, and if you let us know what's going on, then we'll share that too. It is past 5:30 now, so that's our hour. That's our hour over. We know we've had some people watching. We've had a few people asking some lovely questions and some good chat about apples and growing in buckets, and the pH of soil, and a few of the nice bits and pieces about water and plant foods. That was good fun.
It's been so nice to hear from people out there, and I'm so looking forward to getting back out into some real community gardens and projects and workshops. Yeah,
definitely. Long overdue.
Yeah.
We will be doing Gardeners Question Time all over again in July and August. We can get up a little bit. So look out for the event pages. Tune in, ask a question, give us some chats. We have talking about gardening. Sophie just reminded us the next date is the 10th of July at 2:30 p.m. Like I said, we are Propagate. We love talking about food. I've been Abby.
I've been Jenny.
And watch more of our videos. Like, subscribe, share, and if you feel like you can, throw some money into the pot, because we don't have any funding for this. We just like talking about food. That's it for us. I'm going to